It's excellent news. I mean, from a purely emotional standpoint, from a personal standpoint, I fought in the Second Lebanon War as a soldier in the IDF, so it's very personal. Lost friends, so this is a good day. I think for Israel, certainly for the Middle East, even for those in the Middle East who don't realize it, and certainly there's a lot of American and other Western blood on this man's hands. It's a good day. Excellent intelligence, as we've been seeing. I mean, if there's one thing that we can say about the IDF's actions against Hezbollah for the past 11 months, the intelligence has been superb. The ability to identify previously anonymous people, these Radwan Force commanders, for example, identifying their place in Hezbollah's hierarchy, and then finding them sometimes driving around South Lebanon in cars or on motorbikes and eliminating them on the spot. Finding Fuad Shukr, the former military commander of Hezbollah, and his successors, the beeper explosions, the walkie-talkie explosions that followed that. This is the result of excellent intelligence. And then obviously there was the business end of the strike. We saw 6 buildings were flattened in Dahia yesterday. I think they wanted to make sure that whatever target was being hit would not be able to survive. So that definitely happened. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have expected it. I remember a colleague of mine and I were talking about a potential ground invasion over the weekend. And he was saying, well, I'm betting ground invasion. And I said, well, no, not possible, because how are you going to do that with the prime minister away? Now, this certainly wasn't a ground invasion, but it would appear that Prime Minister Netanyahu did leave these plans in place before he left, approved this before his speech, and it demonstrates the tremendous trust he placed in the civilian echelon that remained inside Israel, controlling the IDF, and in the IDF's ability to execute this operation. I think the word is disarray, but let's not count Hezbollah out just yet. They are an organization that has been around for 40 years. They're a professional organization. There is a hierarchy, and there is a chain of succession. Now, there were rumors yesterday that Hassan Hassan Nasrallah's would-be successor, was assassinated. I'm seeing counter reports today. There was also a report of another assassination by the Israelis just an hour ago. So who knows who that was? I don't think Hashem Safiuddin will live long. The fact of the matter is, while this won't damage the organization's structure, Nasrallah was the face of Hezbollah for 30 years, ever since I was a child. And there's a double-edged sword to that, in that he was a charismatic and I'd say mesmerizing figure. Even for someone like me who had no love for the man, I would engage with his speeches in a negative way. It's a form of engagement. Imagine the impact on his followers. Now, that has a positive side to it, in that it allows retention of support. It allows someone like that, who has the trust of these people, to, when Hezbollah suffers setbacks, to frame the narrative in a manner that supports Hezbollah, that doesn't allow for attrition from the support base or defections. But then when you kill such an individual, after the organization is essentially turned into a cult of personality, it's going to be hard for a successor, as competent as they may be, and as much as they may resemble Nasrallah. If we look at Hashem Safiuddin, this is his maternal cousin, looks like him, competent from an administrative standpoint. He's the head of the executive council. He even has Nasrallah's same speech defect in pronunciation of the R. But he will have big shoes to fill that Nasrallah has left behind, and that's going to do damage to the organization. I think the Israeli strategy now is to ratchet up the pain such that they will decouple a Lebanon ceasefire from Gaza, and opt to stop the pain on themselves. Now, whether Hezbollah will do that or not remains to be seen. This was Hassan Nasrallah's vow. He is no longer there. We'll see if the organization continues that. I don't know if, I have to say, I've kind of been shocked at Hezbollah's response, not just now, obviously, but since the assassination of Fuad Shukr. The response has been, I don't want to sound arrogant or to minimize the danger of the organization, but rather pathetic compared to the expectations of, at minimum, 1,500 rockets a day, and the short-range missiles rained on northern Israel and so on and so forth, the PGMs, the drones. And last night I think they fired off 16 rockets. That doesn't mean that Hezbollah is, again, down for the count. That does not mean that we will not see them unleash their full arsenal. I think now they're they're still reeling from one blow after the next. And I don't think the Israelis are giving them enough time to assess, to take a breath and to assess, okay, do we go full on? What are the implications of that? Or do we have the capabilities anymore? And again, the Israelis aren't even waiting to allow them to count what capabilities they have left. There's preemptive strike after preemptive strike, not just on commanders, right? So you could have all these missiles and you don't have the commanders to direct them, they're useless, but also on the means of fighting themselves, Hezbollah's arsenal. So if you don't have an arsenal to fire, where are you going to go with that? I think they have not had a moment to sit back and take stock. If they do get that chance, or even before that, we may see, now that the command structure has broken down particularly, there is a danger that Hezbollah may start to act more recklessly, thus inviting even more pain from the Israelis. But as of now, it seems like they're sticking to their commitment to only continue firing into Israel until a Gaza ceasefire is achieved. That for them would be they could still be framed as a victory. I don't think Iran wants to risk losing Hezbollah, especially after the loss of Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. I mean, the Gaza infrastructure that they built for 20 years. So definitely, you don't want to lose your prized possession in the region, which is Hezbollah. They've suffered a setback. If they stop and stanch the bleeding now, it's recoverable in the long term, despite the significant losses, including of someone like Hassan Nasrallah. But I think Iran would prefer not to transform this into a regional war that may invite the United States to finish off, help finish off the job against the Iranians and their other militias. So if you're Iran, you're wanting to cut your losses right now. I think you're primarily seeing this from a lot of Syrians, a lot of Sunnis in Tripoli, northern Lebanon. So it's not across the board. You also saw Saad Hariri, former prime minister of Lebanon, whose father, Rafiq Hariri, was assassinated by Hezbollah, condemning the strike, right? Condemning the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, the man who ordered his father's death. So it's a complex reality, and I wouldn't say there's celebration or mourning. It depends on who you are and what you've suffered at the hands of this organization, and sometimes not even then. I think the ball's in Hezbollah's court. I think if they accept to withdraw north of the Litani, if they stop their attacks into Israel, then I think the Israeli intensification of pain on Hezbollah that we've seen over the past 2 weeks, the intention is to obviate a ground invasion. Let's see. The ball's in Hezbollah's court.
Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the terrorist army Hezbollah, was killed by Israel Defense Forces in a precise strike in Beirut last night while he was in Hezbollah's central headquarters commanding more imminent attacks against the people of Israel. For decades, Hezbollah, under the command of Hassan Nasrallah, orchestrated countless attacks against innocent people. Hassan Nasrallah had the blood of thousands of men, women, children on his hands. Israeli, Jews across the world, Lebanese, Americans, British, French, Syrians, and other countless victims across the Middle East and beyond. Hezbollah, under the command of Hassan Nasrallah, joined Hamas in attacking Israel on October 8th. Just one day after Hamas's massacre on October 7th, for almost a year, Hezbollah, under the command of Hassan Nasrallah, has been firing thousands of rockets, suicide drones, anti-tank missiles, and ballistic missiles at Israeli towns and cities. 60,000 Israelis fled their homes in northern Israel. Hezbollah has openly declared that it has a plan to carry out its own October 7th massacre, on Israel's northern border, but even in a larger scale.